This week on Quality Digest Live, management lessons from Walt Disney.
Plus, customers demand immediacy. Can you provide it?
Right now?
That was pretty funny. We'll find out when we come back.
Today's sponsor of Quality Digest Live is Hexagon Metrology. Hexagon carries the widest range of quality brands. With an extensive support network, Hexagon is also your partner. Hexagon Metrology. We are metrology.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for June 6th, 2014. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest publisher Mike Richmond. Well, periodically on the show, we like to bring you to your attention some interesting new books covering the quality industry. So we're going to kick things off this week with an overview of one such new release. Juran's Quality Essentials for Leaders, right there is the name of this new book, written by Juran Global President Joseph DeFeo. You can see it there, and you can see it in my hand. See, Dirk, it's one in the same. Look at that.
Shiny.
Almost like, if I can just like, yeah, wow, look at that. If I had any aspect ratio, I'd be able to do that.
It's amazing.
Well, it's incredible. Joseph DeFeo has been associated with the Juran organization for many years, and he worked closely with the late, great Joseph M. Juran himself. It's no surprise, then, that this book is very much imbued with the philosophy of Juran, namely the critical importance of management and planning in the delivery of high-quality products and services. In particular, Juran's Quality Essentials for Leaders, again right there, explains how managers can help their organizations benefit from solid strategic planning and, when necessary, leading a change in culture. Tactical efforts such as goal setting, developing an innovative mindset, and benchmarking are also illustrated nicely. The book has a very little theory in it, actually, Dirk. It's really more about good, practical advice. You're not going to see a lot of formula and necessarily charts in here. Really, it's practical advice that's written for real managers and real organizations with real customers. And it clearly links performance excellence with financial results. Great quality helps these companies in two distinct ways. First, excellent products and excellent services help win and retain customers. Second, the quality mindset drives defects and other waste out of the system. When you combine the two, of course, you get actions that supercharge the bottom line for these successful companies. Juran's Quality Essentials for Leaders is out now, and if you're interested in ordering a copy, just click on the story link right below the player screen right down there. The story contains a link where you can order the book. Oh, and by the way, you may know, Dirk, I think I've told you, and all you out there should know as well, Joe DeFeo, author of this book, is going to be scheduled to appear with us on the show in 2 weeks' time, on June 20th. So check that out if you're interested in learning more about these topics, especially leadership, which of course is important in managing quality. Make sure to check out the show in 2 weeks on June 20th.
And I like the idea that it's practical and it ties these ideas into the bottom line, because really, what use is it in a sense if you're not actually impacting your company's profitability?
Your profit, yeah. He talks about Baldies in here, which was a fund which kind of tracked Baldrige-winning companies, and they significantly outperformed the New York Stock Exchange. So, you know, obviously quality pays off, and you're going to find out a little bit more about how that works in this book. So check it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Each year, U.S. farmers lose 12% of their crops to pests and another 12% to diseases. This is according to Georgia Tech Research Institute, that's GTRI, their food processing technology division. So typically, to identify threats to crop health, farmers will look for physical symptoms of a disease, such as discolored or wilting leaves, and that's very often. Well, you'll see farmers out there, and they're looking at the leaves, or looking at their plants, because that's really kind of where your first indication of something going wrong is going to be out. It's visible. The problem is, by the time these symptoms are visible, the plant is already dead or dying. And really what's worse is if the culprit was a plant disease of some sort, it may have already spread to nearby plants, threatening the entire health of the health of the entire crop. So what farmers need is an early warning, a diagnostic, if you will, some sort of instrument that would give them a heads up before a disease has a chance to take hold. Now, here's kind of some background here. all plants and pathogens emit what's called volatile organic compounds, VOCs. You've probably seen that term very often. These emissions can actually be used as chemical markers. So the goal for GTRI, Georgia Tech, is to create a gas chromatograph, that's an instrument, that can be easily deployed out in the field to sniff plants, so to speak, and to correlate the detected VOCs with the plant's health status. Now, the first part, the detector, has already been developed. It's a gas chromatograph, if you can imagine this, about the size of a 9-volt battery. We can see it there on the screen. So the idea is to put dozens of these micro GCs, as they call it, micro gas chromatographs, in a ground robot that a farmer could then use in the crop to walk through to actually run through the field and take samples from the plants, plant to plant across the entire field, and get results in minutes. Think of it as kind of a mobile chemical lab that provides real-time data to the farmer. The big problem right now that GTRI is facing is they don't actually know right now what VOCs are a signature of a particular disease. So a lot of study needs to be done. So what they're doing is they're going out there with a gas chromatograph, different kinds of weather, bright sunlight, low sunlight, because the VOCs change, healthy plants, diseased plants, and what they're looking for is to start drawing a correlation between what the gas chromatograph is reading and the difference between a diseased plant and a healthy plant. If possible, what they're trying to do is to cut the loss of disease, which we said at the beginning is about 12% loss. They're looking to cut that in half. If they could do that, that would actually prevent billions of dollars of lost revenue each year for farmers. So it's kind of a big deal. If they could identify ahead of time that we have a problem, we have a disease potentially brewing in our crop, they can deal with it, because a lot of these diseases can be dealt with if you spot them early enough.
Sure.
There's things you can put on the plants to kind of minimize it, but once it's gotten into the crop and the crop started to feel this disease, then you essentially have lost the crop, or a big portion of the crop. So it's a big deal to be able to do this.
Well, sure, because there's only so much arable land. There's only so much land you can grow on, and we need to be as efficient as we can on that land. There's always more people on the planet. We need to feed more people. So, you're talking about, I think 12% was the number you mentioned. That
right, exactly. So if they could, what some farmers do, by the way, is because they know they have this loss, they grow more than they think they might need, because they know they're going to get a certain amount of loss. Well, like you said, if you have a certain amount of land, you can increase your yield. Sure. You can do two things. You can increase your yield on a given amount of land, or you can use less land to get the same amount of yield. Right. So either way, if you can decrease those losses.
Yeah, it's almost like if you had 8 fields and only 7 of them are productive.
Right.
It's like you have a whole 8th field that actually is productive. You think about it. What other industry would permit that? 12% waste. That's like crazy.
Huge.
Think about that in aerospace or automotive or medical device. Semiconductors. Come on, that's nuts. They say that we can't operate this way. We can't even operate probably at a tenth of that.
And by the way, if you look at both those numbers, 12% plant disease, 12%, I think they said pests. So they're losing about a quarter of their crop every year just to natural things. That's nature.
It's called nature.
It's called nature. Yeah.
Interesting story. Thanks, Derek. Okay. Well, here's another story. This one is pretty far out. Okay.
Boom.
Bringing a spaceship back from the dead is the name of a news item that we ran from the University of Arizona College of Engineering. Jacob Gold, a student at the school, is heading a team with an ambitious goal to wake up and repurpose a space probe that was initially launched by NASA in 1978 and which has been silent for more than 25 years. This probe actually had a few different missions. One of them was to study the magnetosphere. I'll get to that in a minute. But it also studied a comet in 1982. So it was kind of repurposed already, but they're looking to repurpose it again now for a pretty interesting task. I'll get to that here in a minute. The plan is to first reestablish communications with the probe, which initially was called the International Sun-Earth Explorer, and to reboot the original mission, which was to study the effects of solar wind on the Earth's magnetosphere. Gold and his team have only a very, very short window of time on this project. This summer, on August 10th to be precise, the probe will come within 10 miles of the moon's surface and slingshot back into, hopefully, the new orbit required for this new mission.
Right.
But to do so, the communication system must be brought back online before then. That will allow Gold and his team to control the thrusters.
Okay.
So when it has that slingshot 10 miles above the moon's surface and uses the gravitational forces of the moon, they'll fire the thrusters at the right, if they can communicate with it, fire the thrusters at the right amount and get it into the orbit it needs to be to do the study of the Earth's magnetosphere.
Okay.
But again, they've got to establish the communication. So to do that, they're going to be using the 305-meter dish at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico to, again, communicate with that satellite. By the way, using the Arecibo dish to send messages could come in handy. We actually had a different story which we covered. Okay. NASA has a book out called Archaeology, Anthropology, and Interstellar Communications. And this is a serious book, and it explores the issue of communicating with aliens. How would you communicate with aliens, right? I mean, you think that you just talk to them, but they may not understand English, or,
come on.
you know, I mean, they may not get our texts, but this is an important thing, and you know, who knows? The work that Gold and his team are doing using Arecibo might come in handy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was in our odds and ends section. Check that out. Anyway, getting back to this idle conversation with the aliens being assigned. Getting back to Jacob Gold's project, it's going to also serve a really important function, a down-to-earth function. That's to support STEM education. The information gathered from the repurposed probe is going to be made available online. And Gold used the example of high school students. High school classes, for example, are going to be able to design and track projects throughout the school year, taking the data that this probe is gathering on the Earth's magnetosphere and kind of run their own info. Yeah. Pretty cool. Gets kids interested in science, STEM education, so that's a really good purpose for that. So for more information on this item, and not to mention all the other pieces that Dirk and I have covered or going to be covering on today's show, be sure to check out our story links. And they're always available right below our video player screen right there.
By the way, that big dish in
Arecibo.
That was in a James Bond movie.
It was in, you know, I looked that up. I thought it was Moonraker, but no, it was actually in GoldenEye.
GoldenEye, right.
It was in GoldenEye, and yes, it was used for nefarious purposes by a villain.
Imagine
to talk to aliens. No, not to talk to aliens, but it was used in that movie, and now it's going to be used by Gold and his team to communicate with this probe. Pretty cool stuff.
There you go. Okay, in his article, quotes a management lesson from Walt Disney, David Fenn writes the first mention of Disney's creative strategy was taken from an interview with two of Disney's original animators. That would be Ollie Johnstone and Frank Thomas. Johnstone and Thomas had said there were actually three different Walts: the dreamer, the realist, and the spoiler, and you never knew which one was coming into your meeting. The idea was that Walt Disney put on a different hat, if you will, based on what goal he was pursuing at that time. If he was, let's say, in innovation mode, let's come up with a great idea that nobody has seen or experienced, then he would put on his design hat. Or how do we get it done would be, let's say, his... what was the other phase we said?
The design, the critic phase, and the spoiler.
In the spoiler.
Yeah.
So he had his dreamer hat, which was what are we going to make? He had his design phase, you know, how can we actually build this? And then he had the critic phase, which is let's shoot holes in this thing and see where it bleeds. And you need all three, according to Fenn. So he said, wouldn't it be nice if all of us could do as Disney did and put on different hats as needed? But in reality, not many people have all those very different skill sets, or if they do, they don't easily slide from one of those skill sets to the other. But your team can. So whether your leader can be a dreamer, realist, and spoiler or not, your team certainly can be made up of dreamers, realists, and spoilers, and they should be made up of all three. Yeah. So what's Fenn's talking about? Well, the dreamer, according to Fenn, has innumerable fantasies, outrageous hunches, and bold and absurd ideas without limit or judgment. You don't censor anything with a dreamer. Kind of like a good brainstorming session. We know how a good brainstorming session works. Nothing is too absurd or silly. Anything is possible. To be the dreamer, you have to ask, if I could have a magic wand and do anything I want, what would I create? How would it look? What could I do with it? How would it make people feel? What's the most absurd idea I can conceive? And kind of the other side of this is the support of a dreamer is really important. It's important, whether it's in a brainstorming session or at lunch or whatever, that you let the dreamer spin these dreams. Even if you know the dream at this point is like completely impossible, you can't afford it, or it's physically impossible, that's okay. It's a dream. that gets the creative process going. And from those crazy ideas come ideas that might still be crazy, but they're feasible,
Sure.
right? And so you can't quash kind of these wild ideas, right? That's the dream phase. Now you got to move on to like, well, we've got to make this product. So that's where your realist comes in. And again, we're talking whether it's a realist on your team or somebody switching into realist mode. The realist tries to figure out, how do they make the ideas? They ask, can I make this happen? What are the features and aspects of the idea? Can I build ideas from features or aspects of maybe other products? What's the essence of the idea? Can I extract a principle? Can I make a connection? I love this one. Can I make a connection between the principle of this idea and something dissimilar to create something tangible? And we've talked about in the past trees, T-R-I-Z, which is actually a methodology that helps that. It helps you look at what are some concepts that are similar to what I'm trying to develop that might be in a completely dissimilar project or product, but you know what? The ideas are kind of the same, and maybe I can tease something out of this and plug it into something else. I would point out that in my mind, a realist is going to be a person with a wide range of experience. You want somebody on your team, if they're going to be the realist, who's had a really wide variety of jobs. Maybe they've worked in a restaurant, they've been an assembler, they've dug ditches, they've worked with programmers and doctors and lawyers. Okay.
Oh my.
Maybe programmers and doctors. The more varied their background, really the more they're able to pull from in terms of seeing connections between what the dreamer wants to do and what might be close to a reality in the real world, what could be built. So now you have your concrete, we can build this. Now it's time to call in the critic. The critic reviews all the ideas and tries to punch hole in them by playing the devil's advocate. We've talked about the importance of the devil's advocate in the past, last week in fact. A critic asked, is this the best way? Is this the best way we can do this? Can we make it better? Does the idea or the approach make sense? How does it look to a customer or a client or an expert? Is it worth time to work on this idea? Can we improve it? I mean, that's basically it. You've got your dreamer, your realist, and your critic, either all in one or in a team. And you need these type of thinkers to take yourself from idea to a feasible and useful, that's critical, not just feasible, but useful product. So I think it's interesting to keep this in mind. There are certain people out there, Steve Jobs, Walt Disney, they can wear all three hats.
Sure.
But you don't need somebody like that. You need three people, perhaps, or a team that is made up of people who can embody those three ideas. And they're all important. And if your team's made up of that, you kind of cover the bases in terms of getting a product from the dream stage to out there and being sold.
And I think culture is really important here too. I think you need to have the right organization that embodies that too, because if you have an organization that's fear-based, and we talk about this a lot too, you're not going to get that out of people. Yes, you're going to get something of their dreams, you're going to get something of the design, you're going to get a lot of critics probably. It needs to be balanced somewhat so that you feed all three of those things. But to me, the most important part of that is the dreaming.
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
You gotta have the idea to begin with.
You have to have the idea to begin with. I mean, you can't, you really can't do much with a so-so idea. You can design the heck out of it, you can poke as many holes in it and make it the best it can possibly be, but if you don't have a winning idea to begin with, it's just not going to matter.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the most important part, is the dream part. And again, fear-based cultures, for some reason, are afraid of dreams. They're afraid of dreaming into something and letting their people own their dreams, basically, and bring their dreams into the company. The classic example was Kodak, right? That had the idea of digital photography way before it was commercialized, and they squashed it.
That'll never fly.
Yeah. Well, then they said this is a threat to our paper business. This is a threat to our business of printing film on paper, which is a hugely profitable line, and having digital cameras, heck, nobody's going to print them, right?
Right.
Well, you know what?
Yeah, ouch, that hurt.
Business went away anyway. But no, I mean, the dreaming is really, to me, is really the most important part of that. You need to have all three, but I think it starts with the dream and then it goes from there.
Yep.
Good stuff. Yeah, Walt Disney, I mean, you look at these old lines, we talk about Henry Ford all the time, we talk about Walt Disney all the time. I mean, these people stood the test of time because they had really good practical ideas. They built great companies, and I think that they may have been scary guys, some of them, but they didn't have fear-based organizations, I don't think, many of them. They were able to let their people express their creativity and build their great companies for them.
Right.
So, good stuff. All right, well, we're going to talk about another kind of a similar idea here with regard to management and with regard to how you make your company great. And it's a piece called Compression, Immediacy, and the Death of the Iron Triangle by Matthew May. That appeared in Monday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. Now, for anyone who's not familiar with the old concept of the iron triangle, it's the idea that as a customer, you can have any two of three qualities. You can have quality, you can have cost, or you can have speed. You can have any two, but not all three. You know, you give it to me fast, good, and cheap. You pick two. Jeff says it all the time. Jeff, our owner, says it all the time. So, you know, that was always the model. That was always the idea for many, many years. It was the idea that a customer had to choose. Well, that's not the case really anymore. Today, as Matthew May writes in his article, quality and cost are merely, as he says, the ante. It's really what you chip in to get into the game. The skin in the game is quality and cost. Everybody's got quality and cost. If you don't have quality and cost, you don't have a business to begin with. Sure. So everybody's got quality, everybody's got it at the right cost, or something close to the right cost. But to succeed, to win and retain customers, organizations must provide time compression too. Interesting concept, time compression. And time compression really is just a fancy way of saying give it to me fast as possible. But it actually goes beyond fast. I'm going to get to that in a minute. In other words, customers are saying today, I want what I want, exactly how I want it, at exactly the price I want to pay for it, and no more, and I want it now. I want it right now. And you know what? Those customers are going to be able to demand that. They're going to be able to get that, and if they can get it from you, great, they'll get it from you. If they can't, and your competitor can provide that to them, they'll go there. Brand loyalty really is kind of becoming a thing of the past. It's not really gone, but it's becoming a thing of the past. And this is the reason for it, is that we are in a world, the internet has really caused us, I think, in a large measure, where people can get it, again, can spec out what they want, exactly how they want it, when they want it, and they can get it at the price they want it. And they're going to just be able to. Because we've enabled them to do it, they're going to, and you have to be able to do that. So, getting back now to the idea of time compression. Taken to its logical conclusion, again, that's just time compression is just a fancy way of saying give it to me fast. But taken to its logical conclusion, time compression leads from fast to immediate. And it actually goes beyond that. It goes beyond immediate. If you can think of anything beyond immediate, there's actually time compression that goes beyond immediate. Smart customer-facing companies plan to fulfill orders now before they even exist. I mean, you think about a company like Uber, for instance, which is a taxi limo service. You know, they kind of pre-provision, and they have a system based on flow and their estimated algorithms of when they're going to need things. And the service is there. It's there literally on demand, and there's no waiting. And the customer doesn't even have to plan it. The customer doesn't even have to know that he or she needs a ride. You know, you have too much one night at the bar and you got to get home. You don't have to worry about calling a cab or setting up a limo or wait. I mean, it's right there. It's immediate. And that's where this is going. That's what Matthew May is talking about. Another example, which is one that's near and dear to my heart, I think it's probably near and dear to your heart too, Edmunds.com, which is a leading, as many of you know, leading car purchasing website. Well, they use what's known as a programmatic advertising model. And they pre-provision and serve ads in real time, including a bid system, fascinating, through an application programming interface. So what they do is they have open ads on their website. They may have an unsold ad, and that, if they do an unsold ad, it immediately goes out to the queue of waiting ads that want to serve an ad in that particular space. Edmunds has analytics on their audience. They know who their average consumer is. So an advertiser who wants to have an impression in that space can bid, pre-provision a bid an ad, and it's going to be filled immediately. When that ad space pops open and the impression's there to be filled, it immediately pulls it from the queue. The bid process is in place, so it automatically charges at whatever that rate is. It has a source code already. Bang! It all happens immediately, right away. The consumer doesn't. I mean, it may load for a split second, but I mean, it's invisible to the consumer, right? That's where this is going, and what Matt May is talking about in this piece is that all companies that are doing this have to do this now, that are succeeding. And he asks you to think about your own time compression. Certainly resonated with me. I mean, I think about all the things that we do that are hands-on things. We talk about automation all the time, what automation really means. And it just means that, you know, you don't need to think. I don't have to make a decision. It's all kind of pre-provisioned, pre-programmed, and it's ready to be done. So it works on both ways. You know, we talk about waste as one of the, in Muda, you know, waste is and time is a big waste. And, you know, I always think about time, many times I think about the waste of time as well. You know, you're in a shop and you're waiting to use a machine, right? There's a waste of waiting for that. There's a time waste. But there is, and there is a waste in waiting, and there's a waste in time in the production, but the more important waste is your customers waiting. Because today,
they won't wait.
They won't wait at all.
Right.
So that's really the killer waste. The killer time waste is the waste of your customers' time. Yes, you want to do your processes better and produce it as quickly as you can, but you really don't want to make your customers wait. And what Matthew May is saying in this piece is you can't, and it's getting more and more to that point where you just can't. And again, everybody's got quality, everybody's got the right cost pretty much within a range, and the ones that really are doing well, the ones that can eliminate time as an element. And it just is there right now. It's immediate. And that's pretty much the end of the game. That's just how it has to be, and it's going to be. And what comes beyond this, I don't know. But that's the evolution. That's where it's going.
It's funny. You were talking about Uber, which is the basically a
taxi, private kind of a
kind of private taxi. But it's going beyond that. Uber, from what I understand, Uber may be partnering with the Google automated car, so that you will have automated taxis. So Uber will be running, from what I understand, and this is going to roll out not too long, I believe, is you will order up your taxi ahead of time. You got a luncheon date somewhere, right? You know you're going to need a taxi at 1:30. Well, at 1:30, your Uber taxi will automatically, autonomously, without a driver, roll up in front of your restaurant, right? I mean, so that everything is going to be automated. Let's say in the taxi world, where, in a sense, and they're going to be able to predict. They're going to be able to predict. Hey, it's lunchtime. We're going to need a lot of taxis out there. They might position taxis in appropriate places around the city for for easier deployment to maybe the financial district or wherever the restaurants are, right? So that when that call comes in, that taxi can be there right away, or can be pre-positioned, like you said, in front of a restaurant. It's all about just speed and getting there for the convenience and the timeliness of the customer.
And what else is it about? It's about big data, of course, like everything else.
It's
about big data. It's about the fact that they can build these algorithms. They can understand the flow of their business because they can crunch all this data, right, over the course of a city or over the course of a state. They can understand what the flow is of business and when they need to have those resources available. It's fascinating to see how much this has changed just in a short period of time, and how much it's going to change in the next 10 years. It's just mind-blowing. So good story there, and check that one out again. You can read all the stories that we're covering today right below the player page, right down there.
There you go.
All right, well, that is our show for this week, but before we go, we'd like to offer thanks to today's sponsor. Hexagon Metrology is committed to helping you control your processes, enhance the quality of your products, and increase efficiencies. They empower you to stay one step ahead of a changing world with their wide range of product offerings, nearly 200 years of expertise, and an extensive support network. Hexagon Metrology, where quality comes together. For more information, just click on the banner ad just below or just to the right of this video player page. And Dirk, I know what you were going to say, because I was going to actually lead it for you. You were just there. You were at Hexagon's user conference, Hexagon Live in Vegas, and great stuff came out of that.
Yeah, and actually, we don't have much time to go through it, but there will be some videos coming up. We had an interview with Norbert Henke, Vice President and CEO of Hexagon Metrology Worldwide, and Al, one of Hexagon's partners, Al Peasland, who is the head of technical partnerships for the Infinity Red Bull racing team, Formula One racing team. Fascinating interview. Kind of a different perspective of what a partnership actually is. I mean, we think of a partnership, that kind of partnership, you're thinking, well, sure, Hexagon's providing test and measurement equipment, Infinity Red Bull is providing, feedback on how that equipment works in a high-paced, fast-paced environment. Sure, all that's going on, but there's a lot more to it than that. Hexagon's looking at actually learning from the cultures of their partners in order to improve their own operations. And we're talking a very large organization partnering with something that's actually fairly small. Let's say in the case of Infinity Red Bull, we're not talking a big company here. A racing team is not huge. But there's stuff to be learned from it. So there'll be videos coming up on that, as well as some coverage of some new products out from Hexagon. So keep your eyes open for that. They will be on this show, more than likely.
Cool.
Okay. Does June 9th mean anything to you? June 9th.
June 9th is Monday.
Yes, it is. It's also your 10-year anniversary.
No!
No, isn't that incredible?
No!
10-year anniversary.
You gotta be crazy.
You already got the gold
you
watch.
You gotta hear.
Wait a minute, do I get to give this back to you?
Hey!
No, actually,
thanks.
Okay. Now, the traditional wedding, not traditional.
I'm not breaking a glass.
The modern wedding gift for the 10-year, it's almost like we've been married for 10 years, is diamonds.
Oh, really?
But you're not getting a diamond. The traditional one is aluminum or tin.
Oh, okay.
So here we go.
It's not even full?
A nice aluminum.
There's nothing in there.
Shoot, I think somebody spit their chaw in there. But here you go, man. That's your aluminum 10-year anniversary.
I'd like
with
to thank
Quality
the
Digest.
Academy for this wonderful. I'm ripping off Chris Smith's.
Oh, by the way, not to steal from you, but since you mentioned Academy, our director, Christopher Smith, is nominated for two more Emmys. We'll find out next week whether he wins a couple. He already has two, and he's an egomaniac. He wants two more.
He wears them around his neck.
kind
of like Flavor Flav with the cloth.
Flavor Flav,
He's got them around his neck like this. So I don't know where he's going to do two more.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He'll stack them
Figure it
in
out.
his bar. Okay. Well, Mike, 10 years, buddy. All right.
Now I'm tenured.
Now you're tenured. Okay, that's our show for this week. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week at Quality Digest Live.
Have a great weekend.
So long.
Bye.